Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥.
Hello friends, this is Vijay. Welcome to ForumIAS. In our today's discussion, dated October 4th, I had taken up some 5 articles. So the first article, the trouble with a novel for mRNA vaccine. So this is the first one. Yesterday, in the prelims bites, we had discussed about the mRNA vaccine and the Nobel Prize for the medicine, right? So regarding that, in today's editorial context, they had given one article. So this is the first article we are going to discuss. Then the second one is related to the Nagorno-Karabakh standoff. So this is the second one. Then the third article is related to circular migration. So with respect to circular migration, what are the effects and what are the issues in migration? And what are the benefits we are having with respect to circular migration? So this is what we are going to discuss. Then the fourth article, the Armenia's parliament votes to join International Criminal Court, right? So these two articles, they are highly interrelated, okay? So with respect to the fourth one, here we will be discussing about the brief tenet about the International Criminal Court. Then the last article is related to the Nobel for Physics. So here with respect to the last one, yesterday we have seen about the Nobel Prize for Medicine, right? So in today's context, we will be discussing the facts related to the new findings in physics for which the Nobel had awarded. So this is what we are going to discuss here, right? So without any much further delay, let us move on to the discussion part. This is the first article, guys. The trouble with the Nobel for mRNA COVID vaccines. Okay, so this is the article title and the author is Vasudevan Mohant. And with respect to this article, he has been critiquing about the award, the Nobel Peace Prize, what the researchers had awarded to the 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 and Drew Weissman for their mRNA vaccine platform, right? So for that, he has been showcasing some counter examples also. So with respect to the COVID-19, we all well know, every countries, they were actually rushed for vaccines, right? So generally, it will take some 8 to 10 years for creating any vaccines because it need to go several levels of trials, right? So almost 3 trials will be conducted upon each medicines. So it will take some 8 to 10 years. But the pandemic, the COVID-19 situation was an emergency, right? So every countries, they were actually looking up for some vaccines to protect the people from the COVID-19. So in that context, the 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐴 and Drew Weissman, they came up with the mRNA platform. So with the help of the mRNA platform, the time has been reduced. The time for creating the vaccine has been reduced decisively. Else, it would have taken some 8 to 10 years, right? So with respect to mRNA, yesterday we have seen about the mechanism, right? Let me give some brief about the mechanism today also. So generally we are having a DNA. DNA, it will present in the nucleus, right? This is a genetic material. And this DNA, whenever any antigens come into the body, it will send some messages to the cell. So the messages will be carried by the mRNA, ribonucleic acid. So this is the messenger ribonucleic acid. And the mRNA, it will hit the cell, and in the cytoplasm, the proteins which are printed in the mRNA will be created. Okay, so the cells will be creating the proteins required to fight the antigens. And these proteins, these protein molecules, they will be eradicating the antigen particles. Okay, so that is COVID-19. So this is how the entire mechanism have been functioning. And with respect to the mRNA, here with respect to DNA molecules, we don't want to create any genetic errors in the future. So that's what we have been relying upon the mRNA. And the mRNA platform, it also decisively reduced the vaccine creation time, right? So here the author has been asking whether the mRNA platform has benefited the entire team. So this is what he has been asking. Because the drug formulation is expensive. We all well know, to create each and every vaccine or to create each and every medicine, it will take hefty resources, right? It will take a toll on hefty resources. So for that, most of the countries, they actually sponsoring the R&D related to the vaccine creation with their taxpayers' money. So the developing countries like China and India, they have been pouring enormous resources. So this is the first concern the author is having over the vaccine creation and the spendings on R&D. Then the second one, the profit motive by big pharma companies. Even though the pharma companies, they created the vaccine with the help of the subsidies of the government, right? The subsidies and all, it will be a taxpayers' money. But even after the creation of those vaccines, the pharma companies, they will be charging hefty prices on the vaccines. So in the pandemic timeline, we have seen clearly certain poor countries, they were actually struggle for getting the vaccines, right? So it shows that the person or the country who are having the resources, they are having the command over the vaccines, right? So this is the big picture. It was shown to us by the COVID-19. Then the double spend by the public. So either it may be a developing country or a developed country, right? So within that, if any R&D is happening, means obviously the government will be also spending on those R&D process. So after the public spending in the R&D process, in the sales also, the private industries, they have been charging hefty profits, right? So who will be paying for it? Obviously the public will be paying for it, right? So the public, for each and every vaccine, they are paying in two forms. One in the form of the tax money and another in the form of the retail price. The retail price what the pharma companies has been fixing. So this is the double spend phenomenon, right? Then what are the lessons from COVID vaccines? So the COVID scenario, it has given us a lot of insights related to the issues which has been persisting in the health related domain, right? So with respect to the COVID vaccines, we all have seen that the developed countries like US and certain Western powers, they were actually stocking or they were actually hoarding the vaccines, right? Because in the transshipment and all, they actually smuggled the vaccines and they stocked in their own country. But whether they utilized it properly? Not, right? Almost 30% of the stocks, what they were hoarded in their inventories and all, were wasted. So this shows a clear disparity in the supply chain, right? So this is with respect to the first lesson what we learned. And the second one, this is related to the inequality in distribution and availability. On the one side, the developed countries, they were raised for the hoarding the vaccines. On the other hand, we were seeing several countries who struggled to get the vaccines, especially the poor countries in the African and in the South American continents, right? So it shows a strained supply chain we were having in the pandemic timeline. Then the third one, it is related to the COVAX initiative. So the motto of the WHO and the UN is related to ensure the benefits to each and every citizens around the world, right? So that's what they came up with, the COVAX initiative. So with the help of the COVAX initiative, what they thought is better they can develop the vaccines in developing countries like India and China, and they can supply it to the other parts of the world. So this was the idea behind the COVAX initiative. But at that time, India and China, they were having scarce resources of vaccines. 1/3 of the global population is in China and in India, right? So they need to cater most of their populations. So in that timeline, both China and India, they were actually facing tremendous issues related to the supply of vaccines to other country, right? Then lastly, India showcased its potential with a vaccine diplomacy. So after the COVAX initiative, after some 5 to 6 months, India, it became surplus with related to the vaccine stocks and all. So even in that critical timeline of pandemic, India, it showcased its ability with the vaccine diplomacy to other countries, right? So it actually created a best example how the developing country should act in the event of crisis. So this is what India had done. And in the article, the author has been showing some counter examples for the mRNA vaccine. Even though the UN and WHO, they had made several efforts to supply the vaccines to all the citizens in the country, right? All the citizens in every country. But they couldn't able to satisfy. But in another case, we are having COVAX. It was invented by researchers from the Houston College and Baylor College of Medicine. And what they had done after inventing the technology, they had given their technology to India's biological 𝐸 for manufacturing the vaccine. And basically, this is a protein subunit vaccine. Here, the platform, they won't be relying upon the mRNA platform. Rather than, they will be creating the protein with the help of the recombinant DNA technology. And the protein molecules, it will eliminate the COVID-19 virus. So this is how the system was designed. And in that research also, they incurred a huge expenditure. But after the invention, they had donated their technology to the India's biological 𝐸. It is a company, and asked them to manufacture the vaccine. And they had advised India's biological 𝐸 to provide the vaccines at lower prices. So this is what they had done. And here the author has been asking to whom we need to give the Nobel Prize. So this is what he has been questioning throughout the article, right? Even though the mRNA platform, it has benefited some people. But with respect to COVAX, selflessly they made some effort, right? So the researchers who involved in the development of the COVAX vaccine, they actually did a selfless effort, right? So we need to appreciate that selfless effort. So this is the author's recommendation in the article, right? So now with respect to this article, we have seen what is the context and what are the lessons we learned from the COVID vaccines and how mRNA vaccines and all have been functioning, and what is the COVAX, and what is the mechanism behind the COVAX, and what is the critique of the author. So this is what we have seen with respect to this article, right? So let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next one. This is the second article, guys. How has the Nagorno-Karabakh standoff ended, right? So here with respect to this article, they had discussed about the present scenario and the history of conflict and what has been happening since 2020 and how the Azerbaijan, it captured the area again. So this is what they have been discussing. And with respect to the Nagorno-Karabakh region, the region is almost composed of heavy mountains, okay. So here in the image you can see we are having two places, the Agdam Road and Lachin Corridor, right. So Lachin Corridor, it acts as a supply line for the Armenian military forces. And the Agdam Road, it acted as a supply route for the Azerbaijan army forces, right? So right now, the Azerbaijan, it stated that it had taken control of the Lachin Corridor, which means it almost ousted the armies of Armenia from the Nagorno-Karabakh region. And in the past 1 week, almost some 1 lakh Armenians, they actually migrated from the Nagorno-Karabakh region and they are moving to the mainland. So this is the scenario, it has been persisting there. And here it has been given that the international law, it recognized the conflict region as a part of Azerbaijan. So previously, before the conflict itself, before the current conflict, it has started in the year 1994. So before the 1994 itself, the international community, they had recognized the Nagorno-Karabakh as a part and parcel of Azerbaijan, right? But the region, even though it is under the Azerbaijan control, the majority of the people who are living in the Nagorno-Karabakh regions are ethnic Armenians. And they don't want to be under the jurisdiction of Azeris rule. So this is how the clashes has been flared up in that region. And it has been stated that in the year 1994, the Azerbaijan troops, it were flushed out of the region. So the people who are living in the Nagorno-Karabakh region, they primarily were the ethnic Armenians, right? And they were raised against the Azerbaijan forces and they flushed out the Azerbaijan troops from the Nagorno-Karabakh region. So this was the happenings in the 1994 timeline. And here it has been given that the background information of the conflict. So the century-old conflict it is, okay? So the ethnic Armenians, they were targeted and a full-blown war between Armenia and Azerbaijan erupted in the year 1920s. So 1920s means you can imagine it happened around the First World War timeline. So this region, it is a portion of the South Caucasus landscape and it has been connecting the Europe with Asia, right? So here in the image you can see, here we are having Turkey, right? So Turkey has been bordering the Armenia and Iran is here. And here we are having a Caspian Sea and below that we will be having Afghanistan. And here we are having Russia and Georgia has been bordering both Armenia and Azerbaijan. And with respect to this conflict, since 1994, the Russia, they had supported Armenia, and the Turkey, they had supported Azerbaijan. And with respect to this conflict, India also had played a decisive role. India, they actually supported their defense platforms like Pinaka missile systems, right? Pinaka missile systems, they are having a range between 60 km to 80 km. Okay. Then they also supplied the Swati radar and Indra radar systems to Armenia. So apart from that, some minor weapons also exported to the Armenian forces. And with respect to Azerbaijan, they received a support from Turkey and Pakistan. So I hope you can imagine the axis between the Armenia and Azerbaijan. So India and Russia, they were in support of Armenia, and Turkey and Pakistan, they were in support of Azerbaijan. Okay, so this is how the axis was existed in the Armenian and Azerbaijan landscape. And here, between 1918 to 1920s, due to the First World War, the ethnic Armenians were targeted and a full-blown war between Armenia and Azerbaijan was erupted. Okay, so this was the first time the area or the region had witnessed the war. And here, the Azerbaijan, they actually incorporated the region into their own territory. And the Soviet Union, they become very powerful, right? So the entire portion, they were regarded as the autonomous region within the Soviet Union. Then after the 1980s, the Soviet Union, it started crumble, right? So after that, the Azerbaijan, they had taken over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Then in the 1994, the Azerbaijan troops were flushed out of the region, and the issue was simmered almost between 1994 to 2016. Then in the 2016, some 4-day war was happened in that region. Then since the start of 2020s to 2023, the frequent conflict were happened between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And Azerbaijan recently they announced that they had taken control over the entire Nagorno-Karabakh region. So this is the issue you need to know with respect to the Armenia and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh region, right? So here it has been given that the geopolitical interference in the security apparatus of Nagorno-Karabakh region. So the actual war, the current war, it started in the year 2020 and it was sponsored by Turkey and Pakistan. So Turkey and Pakistan, they supported Azerbaijan, and traditionally Russia actually it held the support to Armenia, and in recent times India also started supporting the Armenia by exporting some defense platforms, right? And with respect to the war, in the year 2022 December, the Lachin corridor, it was blockaded by the Azerbaijan forces. And in the last week alone, some 1 lakh ethnic Armenians, they entered the mainland. So because of the mass exodus, the humanity crisis has been arising in the Armenian landscape. Okay, so this is what we need to know with respect to this article. And moreover, with respect to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, we have seen the historical background and what is the current scenario and how the region has been getting affected by the mass exodus of 1 lakh ethnic Armenians from the Nagorno-Karabakh region into the Armenian landscape. So this is what we have discussed. And let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next one. This is the third article, guys. The circular migration, looking at both sides of the debate, right? So here they have been discussing about the patterns of migration and what is meant by circular migration and what is the difference we are having between the standard migrations and the circular migrations. And they have been discussing about the benefits and what are the issues the migrants have been facing. So this is how the entire article has been articulated. And with respect to the circular migration, we need to know the mechanism behind it, right? So here we are having two places, X and Y. So this is the source and this is the destination. Whenever the individual, if he is shuttling between these two places, means it is termed as the circular migration, right? So here in the source, we will be having some push factors. So push factors, it may not be favorable for the existence, right? So the job opportunities and all will be meager, and they will be having poor health standards, and they won't be having any infrastructure required for development, right? So these are all the push factors. In contrast, in the destination Y, we will be having pull factors. So in the pull factors, there may be a availability of a better education, a better healthcare, right, and better infrastructure for their development. So these all will be present in the pull factor domain of the destination Y. So because of the attraction towards the pull factors, the migrants generally they will be moving from one place to another. Okay, and here they had been given that what is the difference between the standard migrations and the circular migrations. In the circular migrations, the residence at the destination will be temporary because people they will be often moving between the source and the destination, right? So they won't create any permanent settlement in the destination places. So this is the first difference we are having. Then we are having possible of multiple entries and the freedom of movement between the source and the country of destination, then legal right to enter the destination country. So these all three differences, they have been mentioning the fluidity of travel between the source X and the destination Y. So freely they can travel from source X to Y and Y to X. So this is what these three differences have been mentioning. Okay, and moreover, whenever if there is a circular migrant pattern exists between X and Y means, then these two countries they will be friendly countries. So between the enemy countries or the enemy places, there won't be any existence of the circular migration, right? And lastly, it is related to the healthy demand for labor in the destination country. Let's say we are having a Middle Eastern countries, right? The Gulf countries. And on the other hand, we are having the Western countries and the United States. Here, the low-skilled labor, there is a hefty demand for the low-skilled labor in the Middle Eastern countries from India and Philippines. So these two countries, they will be contributing to the massive stake of low-skilled labor forces in the countries like the Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and all. But on the other hand, with respect to the highly skilled laborers, the countries like India and Philippines and China and all, they will be contributing a massive stake to the European powers because the opportunities will be varying between the countries and the demand for the labor forces between the countries and all have been varying, right? So that's what people who are highly skilled, they tend to move towards the Western European countries or towards the US because the demand will be very high and the remunerations and all will be very high for the skilled forces, right? But with respect to the Gulf countries, they will be demanding low skilled forces from countries like India and the Philippines. And moreover, the remunerations at parity between the Gulf countries and India is extremely high. So that's what the low skilled forces, they tend to move towards the countries which are locating in the Arabian Peninsula. And here, there are primarily two major categories of migrations are there. One is domestic and international, and another one is permanent or semi-permanent. So either it may be domestic or international, it may consist of permanent or semi-permanent settlements. Okay, so even in the domestic migration, the people they tend to create permanent settlements in their destination or semi-permanent settlements in their destination according to the favor which has been providing to them in the destination places, right? And here, the article, it has been stated that the circular migration as the panacea for all. How the article has been insisting that circular migration will be a panacea? Because it has been satisfying the development goals of the source places and the destination places. With respect to the source, they will be receiving their remittances. Anyway, they will be training their labor forces, but in turn, they will be getting the remittances, right? With respect to India, we are getting almost some 89 billion in the form of remittances from countries like US and some Western countries and from the Gulf Peninsula, right? And it has been providing some fruitful opportunities to the individuals. So individuals, they can carve out the career out of the circular migration, okay? So this is the first benefit we are having over it. Then the second one, labor shortfall is addressed. So whenever, if there is any mismatch in the supply and demand with respect to the labor force means, then the cost incurring by the industries and by the government agencies will be very high. So with respect to the labor migration, in the destination country, the labor shortfall will be addressed. So the cost due to the labor forces and all will be reduced. So this is the second benefit we are having. Then the negative impact of brain drain can be tackled. How we can tackle the brain drain? Example, we can take China. China, we are well known, it is an autocratic country. and it recommended its labor forces to come back to China and do a research, especially with respect to the highly skilled forces. So it is also applicable to the scientists and the researchers who participated in several research in US and in some Western countries. Okay, and they actually provided a blank check, and they actually poured several variants of resources for the research, and they pulled their labor force from several countries, especially the highly skilled forces. And they created an ecosystem, and they designed several modules, and out of those efforts, they could able to create several inventions. So this is what I want to mention here. So if the migration, it is in the form of circular migration means, then we can tackle the brain drain. Because with respect to India, many critics, they actually have been throwing a brain drain concept, right? Because India have been losing the knowledge power. And with respect to the circular migration, we are having a potential to tackle the impact of brain drain. So this is what I want to mention here. And generally, the migrants, they will be facing several issues at their destination places, especially with respect to the internal migrants who are moving between northern India to southern India. Previously, with respect to India, let me tell you some facts. Previously, the states like West Bengal, Meghalaya and Assam, they supplied labor to the states like Punjab and Haryana, right? But in today's context, the states like Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Assam, they all have been contributing unskilled labor forces to the industries which are located in southern India, especially the states like Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, right? So they have been facing several issues. So that's what the article has been given, the issues related to the migrants here. The first one is related to the language barriers. So people, they tend to stick with their mother tongue, right? So in the destination places, they need to come up with certain mechanisms to remove the language barrier which exists between the migrants and between the local people. Okay, so this is the first issue we are having. And moreover, the people who tend to migrate, they will be at the mercy of the middlemen, right? So the central government, they need to come up with certain mechanisms to streamline the migration between these states. Okay. Then thirdly, it is about the poor living standards. So in the destination places, they are not availed with proper living standards. So here we can take the Kerala's IAS program. So under the IAS program, they have been ensuring the living standards and the healthcare for the migrants. Okay. Then anyway, in the destination places, they will be paying very low pay. So compared to the local workforces, these migrants people, they will be getting a meager pay. So it is also applicable in the international arena. So if any IT professionals, if they are migrating to US means, then at parity, they will be getting lower pay compared to the US IT professionals. Okay. Then fifthly, it is related to the social discontent at the destination. Let's say between the states in India, if there is a migration means, then the people, they will be facing several language barriers, they will be facing several cultural shock, right? So the social vacuum which will be existing between the migrants and between the native people. For that, the government missionaries, they can collect the data related to the migrants and they can equip the people in such a way to prevent social discontent, and they can ensure the social harmony between the migrants and the local people. Then the last one is related to lack of welfare support. So this is what I already told you. The Kerala's IAS program, it has been acting as a classic example to ensure the welfare for the migrants. Okay. So this is what the article has been discussing. And moreover, with respect to this article, we had discussed what is meant by circular migration and what are the differences exist between the standard migration and the circular migrations, and what are the types generally we are having with respect to the migrations, and how the circular migration can be a panacea for all the disadvantages we are having related to the migrations, and what are the issues the migrants have been facing in the destination places. So this is what we have seen. Now let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next one. This is the fourth article, guys. The Armenia's parliament votes to join International Criminal Court, straining ties with ally Russia. So traditionally, Armenia and Russia, they were allies. Okay, in the Nagorno-Karabakh region conflict also, Russia, they had supported Armenia. But we all well known, in recent times, Russia, they had locked up with crisis against Ukraine. So they couldn't able to do any defense exports to Armenia in support of the conflict against the Azerbaijan. So in this context, the Azerbaijan government, they had undertaken the entire Nagorno-Karabakh region under their jurisdiction. So in retaliation to the Azerbaijan's move, Armenia, they have started straining the relationship with Russia because they didn't receive support from Russia, right? So that's what the Armenia's parliament, they voted to join the International Criminal Court because the International Criminal Court, they already issued an arrest warrant against the Vladimir Putin. So according to that ruling, if Vladimir Putin, if he is landing in any country which is a part of International Criminal Court means, then he will be getting arrested, right? So that's what, in retaliation to Russia's move, the Armenian parliament, they voted to join the International Criminal Court. And with respect to this article, we need to know some basic tenets related to the International Criminal Court, and it has been given here. And it has been given that it is the only permanent international criminal tribunal. And it was created by Rome Statute of 1998. And it came into existence in the year of 2002, 1st July, which means almost half of the nations, they had ratified the statute. So then only any statute, it can come into force, right? Then what are the mandates the criminal court is having? They can prosecute any criminals who are related to genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crime of aggression. So with respect to these issues, the International Criminal Court, they are having power to prosecute the individuals. Then where it is located? It is located in Hague, Netherlands, right? Then how about the members? Almost 123 nations are state parties to the Rome Statute, and they recognize the ICC's authority. The notable exceptions being US, China, Russia, and India. So these big four countries, they are not a part of International Criminal Court. And how about the functions and funding and all? The court is funded by the contributions from state parties and by voluntary contributions from governments, international organizations, individuals, corporations, and other entities. Okay. And with respect to ICC, you need to know some other facts also. They are not a part of UN. But there is an agreement which exists between UN and International Criminal Court. And if any cases, if it is referred by the UN Security Council means, then ICC will be investigating and they will be recommending the judgments to the UN Security Council. And the UN Security Council will be acted upon that judgments what the ICC has been pronouncing. Okay, so this is the relationship which exists between the UN and the International Criminal Court. Okay, so let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the next one. This is the last article, guys, and this is related to the Nobel Prize for Physics. Okay, and it has been awarded for some 3 individuals, Pierre Agostini and Ferenc Krauss and Anne L. Hitler. So these 3 persons, they were awarded with the Nobel Prize for Physics for their invention on attosecond light pulses. So we all well known about the electrons, right? So in each and every particle, we will be having protons, electrons, and neutrons. And the electrons will be revolving around the core nucleus. And the protons and neutrons will be in the nucleus, right? So here with respect to the invention, they actually discovered light pulses, that too in a attosecond level. So what is meant by attosecond? Which is in the range of 10 to the power minus 18. So if it is for nano means, it is 10 to the power minus 9. And the 10 to the power minus 18, it refers attosecond. Okay. So the analogy we can say, I hope you have seen the fluttering of wings by birds, right? So how fast it will flutter? We couldn't able to see the number of flutters it has been doing, right? But if we are having some slow moving camera means, or slow focusing camera means, we can record the number of times it has been fluttering the wings. So the same principle has been applied here. with the help of the attosecond light pulses, we can capture the electron movement and the kinetic energy within the atom. Okay, so this is what they had discovered, and here the atom with respect to the invention is krypton atoms. Okay, so it has been given here. So they actually utilize the krypton atoms for their inventions. And that's it, guys. This is with respect to this article. So primarily what they have been saying, if we are able to capture the electron movement and the kinetic energy of the electron within that particle, means it will provide ample opportunities for certain inventions in the future. So this is what the invention has been stating to us. And for this invention, the Nobel Committee, they has awarded a Nobel Prize for Physics to 3 persons or 3 researchers. Right? So let us wind up this article here. Let us move on to the question section. This is the first question for you. Define circular economy. Examine it in the context of post-pandemic phenomena. So with respect to India, we are having numerous examples, right? So with that stats, I hope you can frame the answer for the question, right? And this is the prelims question for you. Consider the statements with respect to International Criminal Court. So it is a part of UN. It is not a part of UN, but they are having close cooperation with the UN Security Council, right? Then the second one, it has the power to prosecute the accused. Yes, obviously they are having the power to prosecute the accused. And India signed the Rome Statute, but not ratified. India, it is not a part and parcel of International Criminal Court. They hadn't signed and they hadn't ratified. Okay, so this option also we can eliminate. Only one is the right one for question number 1. This is the second question. With reference to the protein subunit vaccine, consider the following statements. It is a variant of recombinant vaccine. So this is already we know. And they are having 100% efficacy against serious COVID-19 cases. You may see this statement as extreme, right? But it is not so. They are having 100% efficacy against serious COVID-19 cases. And they are having almost efficacy of 69% against normal COVID cases. So this is also true. And Biological E is the manufacturer of protein subunit vaccine in India. This is also we have seen as a fact, part and parcel of the first article, right? So all 3 statements are correct. Answer option C is the right one for question number 2. Finally, we are arriving at the end of the discussion. I hope you would be liking the discussion. Kindly press the like button. Let me catch you in another discussion tomorrow. Thank you. Signing off, Vijay.